Hey guys, it's Andy. Thanks for watching. I wanted to show you, I had a customer give me a free 21 cubic foot upright freezer. It's a Frigidaire. It's in fair condition. It's got some bumps and bruises, don't we all? But it's got some deeper issues. It's got a leaking evaporator, which means that it's got all of its refrigerant, or the majority of it, has leaked out, so it's no longer cooling as it should. It'll still freeze water, but doesn't get down to 0 degrees or less than that. So I'm going to show you what that looks like at the evaporator if we were to tear it apart. And also, I was going to give you some tips that if you're looking for a used freezer or refrigerator, some red flags to look out for. So stay tuned. All right. Yeah, so this freezer's been running for 18 hours, and this is a textbook bad frost pattern. What I mean by that is on this top rung, you can see there's a light coating of frost. It should be coated all the way down every single rung. 95% of those spins should be coated in frost. But that's an issue with the sealed system. Usually it's going to be one of two things if you're looking at it like this. It's low on refrigerant is the most likely because it has a leak in the evaporator, just based on what I see every day, but that's typically what it's going to be. Other possibilities, it could be a compressor that's low capacity, meaning that it's not as efficient as it used to be, and it's not able to compress the refrigerant all the way as it should. But one thing I wanted to warn you guys for is some red flags you need to look out for. If you're looking for a used freezer or a used fridge, you can identify sealed system issues very quickly. Just because somebody places a glass of water in there and it turns to ice does not mean that it will be down to 0 degrees or less, and it certainly won't be able to freeze a freezer full of food. Just because it freezes a glass of water into ice does not mean that it's a working freezer for you. So just be aware of that. I want to show you one more thing back behind the freezer. All right, so we talked about the first pitfall. Don't trust somebody necessarily just because there's a glass of water that's frozen into ice inside the freezer. My spidey senses start going off whenever I see somebody do that. I just like to see a good cold freezer. But other thing that I take a look at is back behind. You may have to remove a kick panel back here, but this is where your compressor is. I can feel that it's running, very hot to the touch. Would not be able to hold my hand there very long. It's quite hot. So this has been struggling. You've got your the smaller of the two lines, usually on the right hand side. The smaller of these two lines is going to be your high pressure side, and it should be hot. This one is very hot, and then your other one should have a temperature difference. This one is kind of room temperature, maybe just even a little bit warm, but this one ought to be cool if the compressor is running as it should. So high pressure line, this is your high side. Low pressure line is the larger of the two. Now, on this pressure line specifically, if somebody was going to recharge a system and add refrigerant to a sealed system, which should never have a leak, it will usually be on the the low pressure side, the larger of the two, and also this on the left hand side is called a process stub. And as you can see, there's all it is just a piece of copper tubing, and it's crimped at the end. Sometimes soldered at the end there. I'm gonna zoom in on that. So this process stub, you can see, is just a piece of copper with a crimp at the end. If you find that there's a valve on here, it'll look similar to this one. These are an aftermarket, kind of a temporary access valve that you can clamp onto the low side to add refrigerant to a system. If you find that you have anything other than just a process stub here, just a piece of copper with a crimped end, if there's been an access port put on here, it looks like a Schrader valve on a bicycle tube or on your car tire. It'll have a valve like that. That means that somebody has added refrigerant to this at some point. It's had some kind of sealed system issue. So that's a red flag for me as well. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's not working well. Maybe it's been repaired in the past, but that is not factory. It means that somebody has worked on it. Well, there you go, guys. I hope it was helpful for somebody. Now, just because somebody puts a glass of ice in their freezer does not make them a bad person. Just because there's an access valve at the compressor does not mean they're trying to do you dirty. It just means that there's been some work on that sealed system before. They should be able to tell you the history of that fridge or freezer, and if they can't, maybe that should raise some flags for you. Gives you some ammo to fire back with. Now, if you'd like to see how I come along on this one, I would like to make some money on it. I'm going to try and repair the leak in this evaporator with something called AL822. It's a low temperature brazing rod. The tricky part about aluminum is it melts at 1220 degrees Fahrenheit. This rod melts at 900 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you can get right there in that sweet spot, you can melt some rod into where that leak is at and fix it long term. So if you'd like to see the footage of that, be sure to click the link in the description for Patreon. It's a great way that you can support this site so I can make more videos for you and also get cool behind the scenes footage. Look forward to seeing you guys next time.